Hi, thanks for tuning in. I'm starting this video by showing the latest piece that I've been working on drawing for the last few days. I'm not going to draw on this piece during today's video because for me personally, when I'm watching videos on other artists' channels, I like to see how the drawing begins, like where on the page it gets started and what it turns into. It's nice to see that whole process. So since I draw literally every single day at some point, I don't always film myself drawing, but I do like to show you, what I've been working on. Don't mind all the cat hair on this piece. I especially wanted to show you this drawing because on the reverse side of this watercolor paper, I started something and just truly did not like it. My style of art, which I've mentioned in previous videos, if you've seen that already, sorry for the recap. If you haven't seen that, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah and it's nice to meet you. Anyhow, I've mentioned in previous videos that my style is always really spontaneous. I never pre-plan a composition. I don't think before I draw. I don't think about what I'm drawing as I draw. I just put the pen on the paper. I would say hope for the best, but no, it's like I put the pen on the paper and let the drawing happen. But sometimes the drawing that starts happening just doesn't do it for me. I just don't like it. So I start again. And if you watch a lot of my videos, or if you've seen a few of my other drawing videos, I'm just going to draw as I talk now, you'll know that usually it just comes really naturally to me, like the image just starts to kind of flow. And I mean, I very rarely stop and restart. I usually just keep going with it, and if there's something I don't really like, I'll just turn it into a part of the composition. Like basically with abstract art, unless you tell somebody that something is a mistake, they'll never know it's a mistake, even if to you it doesn't look the way you want it to look. But anyhow, the reason I wanted to show you one of my fails at the beginning of this drawing is because I saw a comment under one of my recent kind of hour-long doodle and talking videos from someone who said that he was inspired to pick up a pen and paper and draw and kind of try what I was doing. And he described his experience with that as an epic fail. And I just wanted to say, like, we all have epic fails in art. Any artist who tells you that every single thing that they do on any piece of paper or any canvas is beautiful and brilliant and exactly what they want it to be, either that person is a liar or that person has already gone through so many fails in their artistic past that they've basically earned the right to no longer fail while they draw. Because nobody is just born perfect at anything. Whatever we do, we have to practice. Practice makes perfect. And, I wanted to talk a little bit in this video about the way we see ourselves as kids and how profoundly that influences the way we see ourselves as adults or as teenagers or basically just for the rest of our lives. Because, and this idea for talking about this came from things I've seen on other art YouTuber channels. This is something totally new to me, by the way. I didn't know that there even was a category of YouTuber called an art YouTuber until I started making these videos of myself drawing and started getting suggested viewing in my YouTube suggestions window. And I discovered this Australian guy named Jazza. You've probably heard of him if you haven't been living in a cult for the last 9 years. And other artists like Emily Artful, who tells these crazy stories about her life while she draws and does watercolor painting. So all of these other artist YouTuber videos have been coming up as suggestions for me. And I've been watching them just totally enthralled and fascinated. I think I've mentioned in previous videos that I've always, from the time I first saw one of his videos years ago, suggested by a friend of mine who said, hey, this guy draws like you, which I mean, we draw like each other. A lot of people draw similarly to each other. Nobody invented it in our lifetimes. But anyhow, one of my friends told me I needed to watch Peter Draws because he also does a lot of non-representational, abstract, highly detailed, intricate black ink drawings. I don't know if that's how I would describe my style. Highly detailed, intricate, black ink, non-representational, abstract drawings. That's kind of a mouthful, isn't it? But it's better than saying doodle, because doodle is kind of dismissive of the art. Anyhow, I've always been a big fan of Peter Draws, and I can relate to him a lot because of the way he just talks about whatever random thing he's thinking about as he's drawing. I think he does voiceover recording over top of his work though, which is different. Like, I'm gonna stop right now and just wiggle my fingers to show you, like, I'm doing this live. I'm not recording a voiceover after finishing my drawings. So maybe that's one area where we're different. But anyhow, it's just recently come to my awareness that there are people who are professional YouTube artists. Like, that's their full-time job. And this just blows my mind that what they do is film themselves drawing and talking and taking art challenges. And I'm just gonna be honest, like, that is my new aspiration. That is my new goal, which it used to be a professional jewelry maker. And it is, to be honest. I've kind of achieved that little goal already, where my real job or my day job is my Etsy shop where I sell my handmade jewelry. And that's nice and that's fun. But I actually feel more creative satisfaction by drawing and painting, like by making visual art than by crafting and making jewelry. So yeah, anyhow, I've been binge watching tons and tons and tons of artist videos on YouTube. Let me get back to the point I started making here. Just really appreciative that so many creative individuals are sharing not only their art with the world. They're not just uploading pictures of their drawings and paintings to Instagram, but they're also documenting their process and publishing videos where they show people step by step. Some of them even show pencil sketching, like preliminary drawings, and then turning those into paintings. And there's this one guy, I watched a couple of his videos yesterday. What's his name? I should remember it. It's something like 10, the number 10 is in his name somewhere. 1000. How could I forget that? Because his name is basically 1000, but he says it differently. So I was watching this guy 1000, and he has a really distinctive style where he does these kind of colorful, cartoony, trippy looking people in interesting looking, almost graffiti inspired sort of settings. He's a mural artist from Seattle. But in his video, he said something that was really kind of mind-blowing to me. Because he said that every time he finishes a painting, he likes it for about 5 minutes, and then he thinks of what he could do better. Like how he could do it differently in the future, how he could improve on that. And that as an artist, he's constantly growing. and assessing his skill level and expanding his skill level. And what really surprised me, that's not surprising, because I think all of us as artists, as soon as we put something down on the page or on the canvas, we'll look at it and think, okay, this is okay, but how could I improve? What really surprised me was that he said he wishes that he could do ultra realistic realism paintings and be able to paint like, I forget which artists he named, but the ones that come to my mind would be like Leonardo da Vinci or Rembrandt. Like, he wishes he could paint exceptionally realistic, photorealistic imagery. And I thought that was really interesting, because I just assumed, and this is my own silly assumption, but I just assumed that anybody who does kind of representational art, they make a conscious choice not to paint photorealistically, but instead to develop their own style. So it was kind of cool to hear that this guy who has developed his own style and who does really impressive, I'm trying to find the right adjective here, but somebody who does really unique and really aesthetically pleasing, sort of trendy kind of art, that he would but he wishes he could, I guess, also do extremely vivid representational art. Anyhow, I like I said, I've been binge watching videos by other art YouTubers, and another video that came up was by this guy Jazza from Australia. His videos, just like FYI, fair warning here, they are addictive. He's got such a fun, excited kind of a personality. Like, he's just happy about life, and it comes through in his talks. What's funny is that I found my own art school prejudices kind of melting out of me as I was watching Jazza's videos, because I've mentioned her in previous drawing videos of mine, but one of the teachers I had, and I use the term teacher lightly because they don't even need any education experience to be instructors. Instructor is a better word for it. One of my instructors at Emily Carr was a lady named Elizabeth McIntosh, and she hated my art style. Like, she would definitely be the type who would call this a doodle, not a drawing. One of the days when I was in her abstract painting class, I was sitting down, and most of you would just like hear those words, I was sitting down, and think, okay, you were sitting down. But people who have gone to art school, like, think of it like this. I'm in a painting class and I was sitting down. Whoever thinks that's an offense, you've had a teacher like Elizabeth McIntosh who tried to condition you to believe that there are certain postures that are more painterly than others. So I'm sitting down working on one of my paintings, and she came up to me, and in the rudest kind of vocal tone imaginable, she said, "Get up. You're painting like an illustrator." And the way she said the word illustrator, you'd think it was a racial slur, like, you're painting like an illustrator. Like, as if that's the worst kind of person to be. And I asked her what she meant by that, because I truly didn't understand. And she said, illustrators who do commercial work sit while they paint, but real artists stand. And I was just like, what? So anyhow, I've been watching Jazza's videos, and he is an illustrator. Illustrator just refers to somebody who does illustrations, so I guess more drawings than paintings. Representational, either cartoonish or figurative, but not serious. These could be wrong descriptions, but this is my impression of what is an illustrator compared to what would be a fine artist or a traditional artist. But anyhow, I was just thinking, like, what's amazing about illustrators is that they would never, at least based on the illustrators I've been watching, they would never insult somebody by saying, you know, sit down, you're illustrating like a painter. If another illustrator decided to stand to paint, it's not as cliquey and elitist, I guess, as the art school idea of what an artist is. But anyhow, Jazza did a video where he was reacting to illustrations and to drawings that he had done when he was a kid. And I'm planning to do a video like this for my own channel, you know, reacting to my kid art, because it was really, really cool to see, because as of now, he does, like, he can sit down and somebody can tell him, you know, draw a picture of a cartoon boy playing basketball, and he'll be able to just whip one out. Or, you know, draw a superhero. There was a video that he did when he got something like 500,000 subscribers. Some number that to me still seems unimaginable. That would be like a dream come true kind of a figure. So he did this funny video where he got drunk on camera to celebrate getting 500,000 viewers. Up until seeing that video, he really reminded me of all the Mormons in my hometown of Lethbridge. So it was like, oh, Jazz is not Mormon. Interesting. When he did this getting drunk with Jazz video. But in that video, he was doing a fundraiser for charity, which was really cool. Where people could, you know, donate different amounts of money. And based on the amount of their donation, they could request either a quick sketch or a full-colored illustration, like a drawing that takes more planning, or just a really quickie kind of a drawing. And he was doing those while taking shots, and you can imagine the quality of the illustrations became further and further and further reduced the more inebriated he became. Anyhow, where I was going with that is that he's reached a point in his skill level where even drunk AF, he can just draw whatever he chooses to draw. And even if it's a little sloppy looking and drunk looking, you can tell what it is. But I do remember, and I've got one of those funny kind of memories. People comment on this a lot, that they can't believe the things I can remember. You know, when they were there too, and they totally forgot until I bring it up, and then they say, oh yeah, like, wow, that did happen. How do you remember that? I don't know. I've just got one of those interesting memories that holds on to possibly useless details, but possibly useful if you learn from them. Anyhow, I remember what it was like to be a little kid and to get an idea for a drawing and to sit down and to try to put that onto paper and then get super frustrated when it didn't look the way I wanted it to look, because there was just a cross communication between my brain and my motor skills, like my hand-eye coordination, I guess is the way you maybe would call this. But I knew what I wanted to put on the paper, but it just wasn't coming out like that. I remember that feeling. And I think that the kids who have art teachers who really encourage them, those are the kids who push past that block of it doesn't look the way it's supposed to, and keep going until it does look the way it's supposed to. And kids who have art teachers who probably shouldn't be influencing the impressionable young minds of children, they don't push past that because they think they don't have talent, which is so sad, because as far as I'm concerned, Talent is not how well you're able to draw something. Talent is how determined you are to be able to draw it, whether you can right now or not. Talent is more about your creativity, I think, than your motor skills, because motor skills can be learned and developed and practiced, but the will to do it can't. It's like, how much do you want to be able to draw? Anyhow, when Jazza did his video where he reacted to what he had drawn as a kid, it was really cool because you could see, based on the years of his drawings, like when he was in the 7th grade, when he was in the 8th grade, when he was in the 9th grade, each year it got a little bit better and a little bit more refined, and you could tell that he was growing and expanding as an artist. You could really tell, you know, his faces became more proportionate. One of the things I remember the most that was kind of cute and kind of funny was that I'll put a link to the channels of all these different other YouTubers I'm talking about, by the way, in case you want to check it out for yourself and see what I'm talking about. But one of the things I thought was kind of funny was that when he was a kid, he struggled to draw women. Their shoulders were really boxy, they had really narrow hips, they just basically looked like men's bodies with boobs on them. And he mentioned that and said that he really avoided drawing women as a kid because they always wound up looking boxy and masculine. And then he shows pictures that he's done recently, and the illustrations are, you know, properly proportioned, feminine looking, realistic women's bodies. Well, realistic for like Instagram models who face-tune their bodies. but you know what I mean. Like, you can tell that it's feminine and not masculine. Anyhow, I think it's really wonderful that there's a community out there on YouTube where kids from home can tune in and not only see artists who they admire, whose work they appreciate, who they want to emulate, who they wish they could draw like. Not only can they turn on YouTube and see these artists, but they can also see the progression and development of those artist styles, so that instead of picking up a pen and trying to copy that artist's work or trying to copy that artist's style and then getting frustrated and saying, well, shit, I can't do it, or oh, shucks, I can't do it. So I'm going to try to not swear on my channel. But instead of just giving up and saying they can't, if they can see how these artists drew when they were their age, they'll understand. It's not something that these famous YouTubers were born with. It's something that they worked on. It's something that they put effort and time and discipline into. And there was another YouTuber, I forget his name, guys. I've been watching so many videos lately, just getting inspired and kind of thinking of what direction I want to take my own channel into. And like I said, I feel more inspired and excited by drawing and painting. I feel more creatively motivated to do this than to make jewelry. So I'm still going to keep making jewelry, but I would really, really like to, you know, do more art, and eventually, you know, maybe long-term plan, be able to do art a little bit more exclusively, like make this my full-time job and then have the jewelry be my hobby on the side, you know? Anyhow, this other YouTuber, and I forget his name, but I'll look it up. I'll go into my viewing history and find it so that I can put a link at the end of the video or in the description, so you can check him out too. But this other artist on YouTube, he made a video from Sri Lanka. I think he sounds like a California guy. Like, I would guess he's from California based on his accent. But but the video he was making it from Sri Lanka, and he was telling in that video about the best advice he ever got as an artist. And he said that he used to work for this man, or this couple, who they made statues. I think it was statues of dogs or something. Like, if you've ever seen that show Modern Family, there's that creepy dog butler that Jay loves but Gloria hates. And when he showed some work that this sculptor couple he used to work for had made, it really reminded me of that dog on Modern Family, but kind of more artistically done. It might not have even been dogs, but they did these statues like that. And anyhow, this guy, who at that time was the employee of this artist, had kind of mentioned that he wanted to be an artist, but just didn't know where to start, or didn't feel that he had what it would take. Not an exact quote. Like I said, I've watched so many videos that they're all kind of starting to merge together for me. But this artist he was working for told him, for the next year, like every single day, pick one thing you want to draw, and every single day draw that, and guaranteed you will get better. Like, there's no question, you will get better. And don't wait to be inspired, because you will never be inspired. Just start. And so the guy did. He picked, I forget which one, but he picked some kind of little animal, like maybe a hedgehog. I wish I could remember specifically. But each day he started drawing that animal. And then after like a couple weeks, he got bored just drawing the animal, so he started adding funny slogans and social commentary and little political messages into it, and started putting them on Instagram, and built up a huge following. Like, people loved it. And of course his style improved. Of course he got better and better and better and better at drawing. And eventually, I think he didn't even do it for a full year. He didn't have to do it for a full year. He started to move on to drawing other subject matter. But he said that if he hadn't taken his boss's advice and drawn the same thing every single day, he would never have started drawing. He would never have improved at drawing. He would never have discovered his style, come up with the social commentary pieces, come up with the kind of cartoon funny pieces, the political pieces. It really got him going. And now he's got like a couple 100,000 subscribers. He can be a professional full-time artist. So he's realized his dream. And he was saying, like, to anybody who wants to be an artist, who wants to be good at it, don't wait to get inspired and then start drawing, or don't try a picture, and if you're not good at it, think, well, okay, I guess I'm just not meant to be an artist. Just commit, do it every single day, whether you want to or not. Don't wait for the inspiration to hit you, just do it, and then you'll be doing it, and it'll get better and better. And the same guy, I watched a few of his videos, and he's very insightful, very helpful and encouraging. He also told a story about when he was a kid, and like for the first time in his life, he decided he wants to be an artist when he grows up. So he got a sketchbook and he started drawing portraits of people. And he was really proud of his portraits. He filled an entire sketchbook with pictures of people's faces. And he said he brought that to school one day, and he was really excited to show it to his art teacher, because it was something he did independently outside of the school outside of the curriculum for art class. It was his own work. And he said they might not have been great portraits, like they were just faces that he drew. But he waited until the school day was over, and he flagged down his art teacher and said, can I show you this? And the art teacher didn't really even give him the time of day, just glanced at his sketchbook, looked at the faces, and said, oh yeah, like kind of dismissed them. And this kid said, the teacher didn't say anything negative or critical, but just through the sheer boredom and dismissiveness and lack of interest, what was communicated to this kid was that his art sucked and was worthless, and he shouldn't even bother, and he shouldn't even try, because nobody cares, nobody wants to look at it. It's nothing. And he said that he stopped making art because of that. And that for years, he would see artists with awe and with admiration, but with a sense of intense separation that, they're doing this amazing thing, but he can't. He's not able to. And it was years later, one of his roommates was an artist. And he said he would watch this guy draw. And he said at that time his girlfriend was also an artist. So he would watch his girlfriend drawing with this roommate of his and just be captivated by what they were doing. And that one day he picked up a pen and paper and started copying his roommate, like would sit down next to him and just line for line, he would copy his roommate's art. And he said his roommate was really encouraging and didn't feel slighted by it. It's not like he was saying, hey, like, this is my art. Get your own art. Stop copying me. No, his roommate would encourage him and, kind of give him tips and pointers. So they would do that together. And then one day, once he was pretty good at it, his roommate told him, now it's time for you to get your own style. And he said that was the best thing he could have heard in that moment. He said it's like he was waiting his whole life to be told that, because that was basically permission to be an artist. That was permission to do it his way, to develop something, to hone his skill, and that was validation. He didn't take it as an insult, like get your own style. He took it as an invitation to get his own style. And he did. That's really, the moral of the story here. But it made me think really long and hard about the impact teachers have on the lives of their students, and how just a shitty day for a grown-up can turn into a lost potential for a child for years to come, maybe even for their entire life. Like that one art teacher who was probably just, class is over, he wants to leave, he's not being paid to be there anymore. Kid wants to show him his sketchbook, like, F off, kid, class is over, I'm not being paid for this. Like that one bad mood that one teacher was in had convinced this guy to give up on his portraiture, and had made him feel like it doesn't matter what he does creatively. And then just some roommate of his later undid that damage by just giving the right advice at the right time and welcoming him to draw and encouraging him to get his own style. And then, like I said, his boss later telling him, don't wait until you're inspired, just draw the same thing every day and your inspiration will come if you just start doing it. I'm thinking of Field of Dreams now. If you build it, they will come. Like if you put the pen on the paper and just start, the drawing will happen. Don't wait until you know what you're going to draw. Just get out your paper, get out a pen, put the pen down and start. If it turns out to be abstract, have fun, you know. If it turns out to be a face, enjoy, style it how you wish. If it turns out to be a cat or a dog or a landscape, like just go with it and see what happens. But just get the pen and paper and start doing it. And if it sucks, if it looks terrible, join the effing club, because all of us made pictures that looked terrible when we started. The only difference, I think, between a great artist and a person who says, I can't draw, is the determination to be able to draw, whether you can or can't. And another YouTuber who I mentioned earlier in this video, whose videos I've been seeing, Emily Artful. Boy, that lady has had she's had a lot of experiences in her life that really set her back. Like I've never, it's almost hard to watch her videos, because it's like every sketchbook story she tells while she's drawing is about something that went horribly wrong for her, or people who, you know, took something she said the wrong way or treated her badly. It's dramatic. So watch her channel if you're able to, you know, get through the drama without feeling impacted by the drama. Anyhow, but she's a great storyteller. I enjoyed watching her videos, but they could get a little heavy. Anyhow, she was talking in one of her videos about a summer art camp that she attended as a kid. And the art teacher at the summer camp didn't like her, and made it really clear that she didn't like her, and kind of singled her out from the other kids and treated her badly. And it was so sad, because she described herself as a little kid in a way that I can completely relate to. It felt exactly like how I was as a little kid, where she said that she went to this summer camp, and she was really excited because part of the summer camp was going to be art. And that meant it wasn't going to be all just running around outside and playing games. Like, there would be some quiet time, and that's what she loved. I think all of us introverts can relate to that. I would rather sit at home drawing any day. Well, maybe not any day, most days. I would rather sit home drawing than go out and run around outside and play a game. I say most days because during this quarantine pandemic, it actually sounds really good right now to get outside and run around and play a game with people. We've been isolated for a while. But anyhow, she described that she was really excited to do the art at the summer camp, and that the art teacher just didn't like her at all, and that the way it started was that most days they had instructions for what they had to draw or what they had to paint, but the day she liked the best was basically just the free draw time, where they could draw or paint whatever they wanted to. And she started drawing, I forget, it was either a Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that a kind of a Pokemon? I was never an anime kid, but she was. So she said she started drawing an anime character, and that this lady just took one look at what she was drawing and said, "That's not original. You didn't create this. That's not creative. You're just drawing something that somebody else already made." And she said it was just so crushing for her, because she was like 7 years old at the time. And, no 7-year-old, at least most 7-year-olds, won't sit in an art class and contemplate to themselves originality. I say most 7-year-olds because for me, when I was 7, I already had that I already had that sense within me that I didn't want to create something that's already been done. I think my mind works a little differently than most people's, in that I've always wanted to draw abstractly, because if something else already exists, I could take a picture of it. So why don't I draw something that doesn't already exist? Because that's invention, that's creation, that's exciting. That's the kind of thing that got me excited to draw when I was a kid. But I wouldn't fault other kids for not being that way. You know what I mean? Like, the world needs all of our different creative styles and creative ambitions. And if somebody's going to become a great cartoonist, maybe they're going to start by emulating other types of cartoons. Or if somebody's going to be, an anime artist, maybe they'll start by copying other animes. In any case, like, all art theory aside, she was a kid at summer camp. And this is what got me the most about her story, is that instructors at summer camp, they're not teachers. They're like glorified babysitters. Like, these are people whose only job it is to make sure that the kids are safe and having fun. It's their summer holiday. Like, I was listening to her and I wanted to go back in time and just give that little 7-year-old a hug and a sketchbook and a set of pencil crayons and say, like, no, this is your time. This is your summer. Draw what you want. If you want to draw, I don't know the names of any of these things, but if you want to draw Pokemon, draw Pokemon. Like, it's your freedom. But she said it was just so crushing for her that the teacher hated her anime. And again, I use the term teacher lightly. That it just kind of ruined the experience. And that, there were other incidences that she had, other run-ins that she had with this woman. She noticed that there was a girl who washed all the paintbrushes after class one day, and that girl was given candy for helping out, for volunteering and cleaning up. So the next time they all painted, she decided she was going to do that little favor to the teacher, kind of get some brownie points. Every kid wants to be validated by the grown-up and given some candy. So she said she took the paintbrushes and the buckets and like all the little cleaning supplies to the bathroom, to the sink, started cleaning them, and that the teacher stormed in and accused her of trying to steal all the brushes. And that day when all the other kids were leaving, every kid in the class got a candy, but she didn't. And again, I'm hearing this thinking, like, this sounds like a Charles Dickens novel. Like, this is real life in the United States in recent history. Like, this isn't what parents think is going to happen when they send their kids to summer camp. Not even summer school, but camp. I mean, I'll put the link to her video too, if I can find this exact video again, because obviously it's her story to tell, and she tells it beautifully and relatably, and she gives the moral of the story at the end and describes basically why adults need to be really, really careful what they say to kids, because kids are so sensitive about themselves because they're still discovering their sense of identity and their sense of self, that whatever the adult tells them, that is their identity. They feel from that moment on that is who they are. And if an adult doesn't like a kid, that kid will feel unlikable. And I mean, like I've mentioned this in previous videos too, I come from an education family, specifically an early childhood education family. My granddad was a director of curriculum for a school board, and he was superintendent of that school board at the time when I was in grade 2. And he majored in early childhood education. So that's like kindergarten through, I think, kindergarten through grade 6, maybe younger. But that was basically his passion, was early childhood education. And my mother's too. My mom was the president of the Alberta Teachers Association. She wasn't just a teacher, she was like a passionate teacher. She cared about kids. She loved kids. I shouldn't say this in past tense. She's retired now, but she still loves kids, obviously. And my Auntie Mary Lynn too. She's also a retired teacher. I like to make fun of them and call them retired. Don't get mad at me, guys. I don't want any PC police saying that that's inappropriate. They're retired teachers now. But I grew up listening to them talk at Sunday dinner, my mom and my auntie and my granddad, about work and about their philosophy of teaching and about, when they would go to different professional development conferences and what they were learning from different experts and how to teach kids in a way that's fun and encouraging and that allows the children to develop. My mom's really cool, by the way. She told me once, one incident that happened was that there was a meeting of teachers and they were discussing basically the futures for kids. Like, how can we make sure that these children grow up, get through school and then go to university and get high-paying jobs? Like, how can we make sure that these kids become productive, high-earning, tax-paying members of society? And so the whole conversation was basically about vocation and future employment and university. And that's all well and good. That's necessary. But my mom said that she just kind of waited until there was a lull in the discussion, and she said, so is anybody also curious about how we can make sure that the kids feel satisfied and happy about life? Like, spiritually fulfilled and intellectually fulfilled and creatively fulfilled? And she said it was just like dead silence. You could hear a pin drop, because that was such a crazy concept that they weren't at all even thinking about, was how to make sure their students are happy. Success is defined in such a strange way in our society. And I think that's why classes like art are optional, especially in high school. Whereas math, science, social studies, language arts, those are all considered essential. And so they're mandatory classes. In fact, I remember in high school, I had to take on an extra course in my course load because I was in French Immersion. Je parle un peu de français. I haven't lost it. I can still listen to people in French and understand everything that they're saying, but to converse with them, my grammar, I almost said, listen to me. Just switching to French for a few seconds and my English is all thrown off. But no, if I try to converse with people in French, my grammar is not great. And my vocabulary is even worse. And it just gets kind of frustrating. I should work on that. I should watch more French videos and anyhow. Where I was going with that was that when I was in high school, I was in French Immersion. And the high school that I went to, the days were not scheduled, the semesters were not scheduled like a typical high school where you have, first period, second period, break, third period, fourth period, lunch, fifth period, sixth period, break, seventh period, go home, which is what I think most schools have. My school had something called the quarter system, which meant that for half a semester, we had 2 classes. So maybe like science and science and math. Well, that would be the worst quarter ever. But just as an example. And then the second half of the semester we might have like, you know, English and social studies, which is more up my alley. That would have been a better quarter. And then the third quarter we'd have like phys ed and, you know, maybe phys ed and drama, or phys ed plus an option. Fifth, it would be French language arts and chemistry. In any case, our school had the quarter system, and it was kind of experimental. It was still new when I was in high school. And just based on the scheduling, I couldn't take art. I had to choose between art and French language arts. And I mean, I definitely would say I use art more in my day-to-day life than I use the French language. But I kind of had that feeling like, this was in 11th grade, this little incident. I kind of had that feeling like, you know what? I struggled through French immersion in elementary school, and I struggled through French immersion in junior high, and I struggled through French immersion last year. Like, I'm not going to not graduate with French immersion. Like, I want French immersion on my high school diploma. So I took my grade 11 art class through correspondence. And that was weird because this was an era. This would have been 2001 when I was in grade 11. That was like before the internet was as big as it is now. We had the internet. Like I had my Hotmail account. Our little chat system was called ICQ. Google it, kids. We didn't have Google. We asked Jeeves. And, you know, we had everybody, there was no Facebook. That's how freaking old I am. There was no Facebook when I was in the 11th grade. Forget smartphones. We didn't even have cell phones. We didn't even have flip phones yet back then. We had to pass notes on pieces of paper that if our teachers caught them, they could read them out loud to the class. Life was a struggle, kids, and I walked to school both ways. Anyhow, my old lady rant aside, I took an art class by correspondence, and in the days before the internet, that meant that I had to pick up a book, a physical spiral-bound workbook, and do the assignments in it at home. And then, you know, once every week, my mom would take my assignments to a physical kind of a warehouse building and hand them in, and then get the workbook or the assignments for the next week. It was interesting. But where I was going with that is that art is given such a low priority in modern educational institutes that it is optional, and it doesn't really count towards anything unless you're applying to go to art school. And I find that kind of sad because creativity is such a vital part of our existence. Whatever job you go into in your life, creative problem-solving skills and the ability to spontaneously adapt to a new circumstance, the capacity to do something differently if what you're doing doesn't work, that's not the kind of thing that you can learn through a memorized date of an incident. Like if your whole education is based on left brain function of memorizing facts, I think this is left brain. I always mix up left brain and right brain. But I think memorization of facts and figures and kind of the dry learning of replicating somebody else's methodology. Don't mind the random cat tail that just floated across my picture. My cat is sitting right next to my sketchbook. If I move her tail, that's just going to make it worse. Maybe that means this video is over. It's already been pretty long. but I don't want to fight Kitty for camera space. Where I was going with that, though, is that creativity, it's a vital life skill. We need to be able to create, just to be able to express ourselves and to be able to get along in society. And if a boss gives you an assignment at work and doesn't give you a step-by-step instructional on how to do that assignment, it's your creative thinking skills that will present to you different ways to do it. And I think that in my life, the greatest blessing I've had is the willpower to stick to it, even though when I first started drawing as a kid, it was frustrating, because if I wanted to make, say, like little flower petally details like these ones, the lines would get jumbled up and it wouldn't look the way I wanted to. Or say if I was doing a big sweeping line to curl around another line, because in my case I was always an abstract, I always just loved the look of abstract drawing. It was my favorite thing. But as a kid, I still remember vividly drawing paisley-like patterns and getting frustrated if one of the lines went wonky. It would like ruin the whole picture. But I would keep going and keep going because I knew how I wanted it to look. And I did realize through experimentation and through practice that each time I drew something, it got a little bit better than the time before. So this whole video was basically my reply to that one comment from somebody who said that he tried to draw like me and it was an epic fail. Dude, the first time I tried to draw like me, it was an epic fail. But I tried it again and again and again until it became successful. You know, and even in this picture I was doing today, there were moments as I was talking when I would kind of tune back into the drawing and think, wait a minute, I don't really like this big fan of elongated like four-headed snake face thing, like, but because I was talking and drawing in a video, I didn't want to restart the whole video, because not only do I draw spontaneously, I also speak spontaneously, and that would mean trying to remember what I said and say it again, which, you know, because it's not scripted, that's not so easy. Anyhow, even today, there were things that I would do differently if I were to redraw this or if I were to do this again. But I wouldn't call it a fail. I would say it's a step. It's a step in the direction of whatever my art is going to turn into next. And I mean, this last drawing that I did, that I'm still working on actually, that I didn't do on camera, but that I've been working on, when I drew this line here, I thought, well, that sucks. Like, that just ruined the whole picture. But I'm still going to finish the picture and try to incorporate that line into it and see how it turns out. And you probably wouldn't have even noticed that if I hadn't pointed it out. You might be looking at some of the prettier lines, like this little filial thing here that turned out really cool, or the first part of the drawing here that I just love. As an artist, the more you do, the better you'll get. And no matter how bad something that you've drawn looks to you, it might look good to other people. I remember when I was in high school, I painted every single day. I would spend all my babysitting money. My job back then was I was a babysitter. I'd get like whatever it was, 15, 20 bucks an hour to look after people's kids while they went out for the night, and I loved it because I loved kids. And I would always draw with them like this, and they loved that too. Anyhow, I would take my babysitting earnings and go to this store called Crafts Canada, and I wish they were still in business because it was such a cool store. It was like Michael's, but like way more geared towards artists than crafters. So the art supply, there was a plethora of different kinds of oil paints and acrylic paints and watercolor paints. And anyhow, I know Michael's kind of has that too, but it doesn't have the same variety that Crafts Canada used to have. So not only is this video not sponsored, but my favorite craft store doesn't even exist anymore, so it's like super duper not sponsored. Anyhow, I would spend my babysitting money on art supplies, and I experimented. I did a lot of oil paintings, and you know, in a little room in my mom's basement with the window wide open, because I heard that some artists went crazy because of smelling the turpentine. And anyhow, I would just put all my money and all my time into drawing and painting. And where I was going with this story was that there were some paintings I did that I thought sucked. And I wish I still had them so I could show you guys my epic fails from the past. But being the egotistical artiste that I was, I threw those all away because I didn't want people to see my experimental fails. I wanted to hone my skill and get really clear, crisp, detailed lines and dots and make it look really good, and just show those to the world, because that to me was a representation of my art and my creativity. It's only now in my, more mature, experienced years that I really wish I had all of those things that I wasn't happy with, all of those pictures that I thought were bad, because it's so inauthentic to just show what looks good and say this is my art, and not also explain these are the steps I took to get to here. You know what I mean? So if you feel like you tried drawing like this, random, abstract, non-representational lines and dots, and it didn't look nice, don't worry about it. Try again. Do one like this every single day, and it'll get better and better and better. And don't worry about whether you're copying somebody else's style or whether you have your own style, because 100%, I guarantee, even if you try to copy somebody else's abstract drawing, it will be copied in your own style. You can't copy somebody's style. Your style will just pour out of you. This was another topic that came up in Emily Artful. I'm going to keep drawing again. My cat has moved her tail. She's taking a bath. I think we're safe to work into this a little bit more again without the tail interference. Anyhow, another topic that came up in Emily Artful's video, she said that a famous art YouTuber, and she didn't name any names, she didn't say who. I have no guesses because I don't even know any other female art YouTubers other than her and the girl who unboxes craft supplies, whose name I forget. She's another fun one. She's got a British accent, super happy, cheerful, fun to watch girl. But she said a really big, popular, famous art YouTuber had written to her when she started her channel, and she was really happy about that. Like, wow, this big, famous art YouTuber is writing to me. And unfortunately, that big, famous art YouTuber was not writing to her to welcome her to the community and to encourage her and to make her feel good. That girl was writing to her saying, hey, this piece that you did looks like you're copying somebody else's style. Why don't you get your own style? You have potential, but get your own style. And she said that I think what sparked the person to give her that criticism was that she had made a picture of a unicorn, and that other art girl had also made a picture of a unicorn. And she was like, dude, everybody draws unicorns. And I mean, I've never drawn a unicorn, but I'm an abstract artist. Somebody could look at this and say, but Sarah, that looks like a unicorn. Maybe it does, but it wasn't intentional. But anyhow, she said it was just so crazy that, yeah, the subject matter she draws is something that's really trendy right now in the illustration community. And that doesn't mean she's copying that other girl's style, because The person who she was accused of copying, she had never even heard of, let alone seen that exact piece that she was accused of copying. So yeah, don't worry about, I mean, I'm being presumptuous here and kind of assuming that maybe this would be a worry to you. And if it's not, then good. But if you ever worried about, copying somebody else's style instead of having your own style, don't worry, because every single one of us who draws, just by drawing a little bit every day, like that other guy said in his video, your style will develop and it'll come out. And even if at the moment it looks like you're doing something the way somebody else does, that's fine. That's fine, because it's still a work in progress. It's still developing. And if it looks crappy, again, that's fine. Keep going. Push through the crap. Like, draw a little bit every day until it looks better and better. And learn from my mistake by not throwing in the garbage all of your first pieces while you're still developing your style, because 5 years from now, when you're making masterpieces that you're proud of and that you're posting on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube or in a gallery or just showing to your friends, however you want to do this, or making videos or TikToks. I'm such an old lady that I had to Google what TikTok was when people I used to know kind of made fools of themselves on TikTok and kind of went viral for the wrong reason. I had to Google, what even is TikTok? But, 5 years from now, when you're making masterpieces, somebody might look at your work and say, wow, that is so good. I wish I could draw like you, but I can't. You'll be glad that you have copies of your own fails where you can say to them, hey, look at this. Like, I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Like, I didn't do it well either when I was new, and now look, I can draw like this. So just do it, and do it a little bit every day, and it'll get better and better every day. And don't worry about being too precise about it. Don't worry about being too ritualistic about it. What I mean by that is if you want to turn on like a podcast and listen to that in the background while you draw, that's what I usually do. Half the drawings I do, I'm either listening to a YouTube video in the background or a podcast in the background. My favorite podcast to listen to lately is one called Matt D'Elia is Confused. And I actually found his podcast when he interviewed me. I'd been so out of the loop for so many years that I haven't really followed Hollywood or who's who, so I didn't really know who he was at first or who his brother was, but his brother's name is Chris D'Elia, and he kind of blew up when he's a comedian, very funny comedian, Chris D'Elia. I saw one of his Netflix specials and he's hilarious. And he got really well known when he sat in his car in his driveway and mimicked an Eminem rap. And then Eminem saw that and loved it and put it in a song and got him to play him in that song. I'm not describing this very well. Anyhow, this hilarious guy, Chris D'Elia, his brother has a podcast, and his brother directed his Netflix special, so I guess he's a director. I just know him as a truth teller on his podcast. He's very good at articulating the things about American politics that are frustrating to me too, that I'm not good at articulating. And because I'm not an American, I don't feel that I have the right to comment on. I'm Canadian, for those who don't know. When I talked about being in grade 10, and French Immersion, my Canadian has probably been showing through this entire video. And some people say I have a Canadian accent, which is interesting because I didn't realize Canadians had an accent. I don't really say a lot. And I don't say a boot, I say about. Anyhow. I'm not sensitive about that. Eh? Anyhow, my favorite podcast to listen to is called Matt D'Elia is Confused. And I knew I would love his podcast from the very first time I spoke to him when he interviewed me for an episode. And it was the best interview I've done a lot of good interviews. I take that back. Ron Miscavige, his interview with me was the best interview ever because I just loved him. He's just so cool, and his wife too, and his cat, and the way he would play jazz music at the beginning of the interviews. People kind of shat on that in the comments because they didn't get it, but I love that. If I could put like a little bit of my freestyle drawings in the beginning every time I interview somebody, I would. So in fact, I should do that in the future when I interview people. So I totally loved how Ron played music at the beginning and talked about the songs. Like, oh, I loved those interviews with him. And that was the first time that it really legitimized for me all the parallels that I could see between the Nityananda cult that I had just recently blown the whistle on and Scientology. Because I had heard Ron's story beforehand. His son is, what's his name, Miscavige? I forget his first name right now. Basically the head of Scientology, who took it over when L. Ron Hubbard died. But I would hear their stories and think, wow, that sounds just like the Nityananda cult. So when Ron interviewed me and said, this sounds just like Scientology, when I told him about the Nityananda experience, it was like so validating for me that yes, I was right. I knew it. I knew these two things were the same. And then when Chris Shelton interviewed me, he just went into so much depth and had so much compassion for the experience because it was very mirrored towards his experience. So those were also the best interview I've ever given. I've been very blessed in the last year of my life to just, so I don't want to say who was the best because each one was the best but different. It's like asking me to pick my favorite drawing. They're all the best. So another one of the best interviews I ever gave was Matt D'Elia. What I loved about the interview style that he had is that he would ask questions in an unplanned but organic way, and it didn't have a chronological plan to it. Like the way he asked about my experiences, of course it started at the beginning and worked forward in time, but he would also ask kind of off the cuff questions and side questions that previous times when I had told the story of my experience escaping that cult, I kind of wanted to go into more detail but didn't know how to weave it in a way that didn't distract from everything else. So the way Matt D'Elia asked questions, it felt really good. I felt very comfortable talking to him. He didn't seem at all judgmental. If he was thinking in his head, like, well, that's crazy, it sure didn't come through in the way he spoke. Like, it was very organic. It was very friendly. And in fact, he also interviewed a lady who had escaped from the Nexium cult, the Keith Raniere one. And she's the one who reached out to me and said, yo, like, if Matt D'Elia invites you onto his podcast, like, do it, because he's the best interviewer. It's organic, it's friendly, it's safe. You're gonna love it. So I had that introduction. Anyhow, that's how I found out about his podcast, and I've been listening to it religiously. Every Sunday he has a podcast episode that he calls the Sunday Service. He's atheist. He's an atheist or an agnostic. I think agnostic is probably more how he would describe himself. Just like me, I'm agnostic. Maybe that's why I love it so much, because I can super relate to what he says. But I listen to his podcast as I draw. I listen to a lot of the Joe Rogan podcast while I draw. And even though I'm a very passionate vegan, I still really love the way Joe Rogan speaks and the way he communicates and the way he expresses his ideas, and his comedic nature is so good too. He's just such a funny guy. Anyhow, where I was going with this long-winded little verbal sidetrack here is that if you decide to take me up on this advice that, you know, I've heard in other people's YouTube channels that I liked it so much and I'm passing it on, and it's something I personally do. If you decide to take this up as a challenge and draw something every single day, you don't need to make it ritualistic and light some candles and close all the doors and tell everyone to be quiet around you and you know, draw as if drawing is something that needs space and silence and planning. You know, just pop on a podcast, listen to a comedian, turn on a show. The reason I like podcasts and comedians and listening to comedy while I draw, it's because those are the kinds of things you can listen to that keep you mentally entertained, but you don't have the urge to look up and watch. It's nice to have something to listen to while you draw, so you can keep your eyes focused on your paper, on your composition. And especially because for abstract drawing, like what I'm doing now, somebody commented on one of my recent videos. Thank you so much for the comments, those who comment. Please, I'm going to go on another tangent right now and say, please like my video, and please subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and please leave a comment, because YouTube's algorithms are more likely to pick up my videos and recommend them to other people if it shows a high level of interaction. So if you like it, if there's more comments, if it looks like, you know, people are not just watching, but they're getting interactive and liking and commenting, that'll really help me out to establish myself as a YouTube artist. I feel like I'm in such a weird gray area on YouTube, because sure, I've got like 74,000 subscribers. I think 74. I forget the number. But I've got quite a few subscribers. However, my videos get very few views because the majority of those people subscribed because they're interested in what I have to say about that cult I escaped from in India. So when they see an art video come up, they don't bother to click it, because that's not what they're here for. They're here for the cult exposure. And I mean, I'm happy to share about that and to keep shedding the light in that darkness whenever I find out something new. But to be honest, my real passion is art. So yeah, so please do like the video and leave a comment, because that helps me kind of reestablish myself in this new direction I'm going. But what I was going to say is, if you're going to take this up as a personal practice and draw something every day to hone your skill, it's nice to have something that you're listening to that you don't feel tempted to watch, so that you can just keep your focus on your art. Of course, music is the other thing. Pop on, you know, a playlist that you love to listen to, and you can draw for hours. I can literally draw sometimes for 5 hours straight and not even feel that the time is passing, because I get so engrossed in a picture. And I feel like the stuff I draw when I'm not filming like this, it gets to be a little bit tighter and cleaner and more detailed, because I'm still kind of developing the talent of being able to talk and draw simultaneously. It's an interesting thing that I've never done before this month, I guess, when I first started doing these. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're inspired to draw a little bit yourself and to hone your skill. And you know what? If you tried to draw something like this and it was an epic fail, congratulations, because like I said just a couple days ago, I started a drawing. Epic fail right there on your screen. But what I did was turn the page over and started a new drawing, and I think it's a success. It's a nice one. And even though this successful work in progress, I'm still gonna finish it. Even though it also has some lines that I would consider failures, I'm gonna work them in and see what it turns into. And that's the only way we can ever grow and evolve as artists, and that's how every artist grows and evolves. And you know what? In a future video, I'm gonna show you some of my art that I did when I was in high school. I don't think I have any of my kid art. I think when my mom moved from the house that she had when I was a kid into the condo, kind of a little place she has now, I think she probably got rid of a lot of that stuff. I haven't asked her, but I'm just assuming that's been trashed. But I do have some of my high school art, so I can show you kind of not where I started, but the mid-range point when I was still developing my style. And you'll see that we all start kind of sucky. Because we all start with an idea of what we want our pictures to look like, and when they don't look like that automatically, we might think we're not able to do it. But guess what? If you can visualize something in your head, which I can't because I have aphantasia, that's a topic for a whole other story, whole other video, but if you get an idea for something, you can draw as well as your idea is formulated mentally. If you can get a picture in your head, you can reproduce that picture on a paper. It's just a matter of training your hand to do on the paper what your mind is doing within. It's possible. Anyhow, I'll pick up this topic more in a future video. For now, that's all I wanted to say is get inspired. Check out some other art YouTubers because there's a fascinating community of people out there. And don't give up. If you want to be able to draw well, you will be able to draw well. Just do it every day and see what happens. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Love you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful. If you've listened to me babble on for an hour, 22 minutes, and 24 seconds as it is now while drawing this mad, crazy, abstract thing, then I really appreciate that you've given me so much of your time in your life. That's a wonderful gift. And I look forward to catching up in future videos, and I look forward to reading your comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye for now.